In a world where your voice can be cloned, a single phone call might drain your bank account. Welcome to Cloned Calls, the voice deception, where AI becomes the master key to your life savings. Thank you for joining Lewis and I on FnPodcast. Basically, we are trying to create some awareness on AI and cyber risks so that everyone can benefit and just kind of aware. We know that AI has grown into popularity. However, it does have its pros and cons. Businesses have definitely benefited with implementing AI into their business. You can feed it information to help you run your business. Something as simple as feeding it employees names, roles. It'll spit out a whole org chart for you. Basically, what I'd like to share here is an article of an example how AI can create terror. Basically, a mom warns of a hoax using AI to clone daughter's voice. In Arizona, the mother is warning other parents after almost becoming a target of kidnapping, a hoax that sounded all too real. Basically, the threat actor called the mom. They had cloned the daughter's voice, and it all seems so real, surreal for the mom, even though that she wasn't, kidnapped. But they were requesting the man demanded to pay a ransom in exchange for her daughter Brianna's safety, but it was all a hoax. This is what basically AI is capable of. A cousin of mine came in town from Colombia. He's a business owner in Colombia. And once he came to visit to Miami, he he received a phone call from some threat actors or these criminals. Basically, they had cloned his employee's voice and they were pretending they were requesting for ransom and they were pretending that they had kidnapped his employee. For an hour, he was basically trying to reach people, back in Colombia until he was finally able to, get a hold of somebody. But they had jammed that his employee's phone in order to buy them time to create this whole scenario that they had done. But long story short, his employee was safe, and basically it was basically a hoax. So something to consider when you're receiving these types of calls from loved ones. Maybe perhaps have some safe words or something like that helps you identify your loved one instead of being an AI voice.
Yeah. Oh, and those social engineering attacks have gotten more and more sophisticated. Like as you mentioned, AI is definitely allowing for a lot more productivity to happen, but it's also expanding that attack surface, right? That low hanging fruit is getting lower for hackers. You don't even have to be sophisticated anymore. These voice changers are all over the place, and it basically creates this umbrella of deepfakes, as you mentioned, with voice cloning. Unfortunately, this is not a new technique. So there's been a lot of people in the dark web and in threat actors who've refined this, and that actually leads to the next story we have, where we're seeing it in the personal sense with Felipe's cousin being targeted in his business, his employee, and unfortunately that mother who had to deal with her employee, not employee, her teenage daughter being misrepresented and scaring her basically. And we all know how teenagers tend to be rebellious and disconnect as it is, so can only imagine the terror of
Absolutely.
not hearing from your daughter in that case. Which I'll start leading here with this article from Forbes from 2019, actually, as you can see, where deepfakes were actually used to scam a CEO out of $243,000. So this is back in 2019. We're in 2023, August actually, and we're seeing AI evolve on a weekly, daily, sometimes even hourly basis. We're seeing these large language models
And that goes
constantly
to show you,
innovate.
Lewis, as well, like 2019 is so relevant these days, and even more scarier now that the AI is more sophisticated than ever. It's crazy to hear.
Yeah, so it's getting to a point where, as Felipe mentioned, safe words for the personal, interactions you have in your inner circle are very well, you know, needed at this point. So Immediately after watching this, I recommend you guys talk to your loved ones and say, "Hey, our safe word this week is yellow dog." Right? Something as simple as that. And then next week
It is.
we'll touch base, guys, in our family dinner table and say blue dog. And it might sound silly right now, but when you get those calls and it sounds exactly like your mom, your daughter, your cousin, your sister, even your dog, right? I don't know. A lot of you guys like your dogs. It'll get there, and you'll be thinking, "Hey, what was our safe word?" And that
Yeah,
threat actor is gonna get
absolutely.
confused, and they're gonna start stumbling. And at that point, you can start kind of use authentication in the sense of things that you know are true for that person that only you know, and it's gonna be basically a goose chase. It's always like that in security, but I think with AI, we're seeing the general public exposed to these risks more and more because they're just increasing. Which, there's interesting things that we're seeing in our field now come about, such as, a lot of people have heard about blockchain for things like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and just basically holding value in a digital currency. But we're actually seeing, as early as 2020, where people have actually used blockchain to combat deepfakes. So one of the ways that we were talking about deepfakes attacking the CEO here, you could actually combat with blockchain. So we're starting to see things like a decentralized identity verification. So when you publish an article or a video or voice, etc., you're going to see a blockchain kind of validate, hey, was that really Lewis and Felipe who
Right.
published this podcast, or was it someone in Russia impersonating the the video of Lewis and Felipe in voice to create a campaign, a disinformation campaign, to trick their customers into, you know, changing something in their network, etc. Like the threat possibilities are
Right.
endless.
Yeah.
So with this, we're seeing creative approaches like blockchain, and that's the point of our podcast today, is to help expose these risks to people who may not be aware, who you guys are maybe just not seeing this news come into your feed, your algorithms like
Right.
position for something else, World Cup, Messi on the MLS, who knows? And this is just not reaching your head. So
Out of sight, out of mind, like they
out of
say.
sight, out of mind. So you know, ultimately, that's what we're advocating here for you guys. And you know, as much as there's changes in the landscape, there's fundamental principles everyone can take to help at least minimize the damage.
Right. Yeah. One other note I want to share here. Something I ran into my social media feed from this guy Michael Lance. Basically, his experience with AI voice was, he received the call from, local area code of his, thinking, somebody that he knew or something, important. But basically, it was an AI voice pretending to be customer service. And what they try to do is they try to make you respond or answer in certain ways systematically so that they can record certain keywords so that they're able to use it in a way where like they can authenticate with your bank account or even sign up to certain services, etc. And it's something that as you feed it more of your voice, they're basically able to replicate you as a person. And
That's insane.
who knows how far that can go, basically.
Yeah, and that, I guess that's like taking credentials harvesting into the social engineering world in a way, where they're now using robocalling to basically harvest your voice profile for an AI model, which is insane. Like I think none of us could have really imagined this to this degree. Certainly there was people thinking about it back in 2019, as you can tell.
Oh
But
yeah.
what we're gonna probably see in the next few months, 6 to 12 months here, is gonna be ridiculous. In our case, at Function, we're protecting our customers with multi-factor authentication, multiple layers, for example, to take on here, because social engineering is the human layer, the weakest layer. It's gonna get more exposed. We thought it was weak before. Well, we're in for a rude awakening. I think as an industry, as a community, as families, and
Absolutely.
really the only way to combat this is over communication with those physical to you. Be extra skeptical.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty insane. I'm scared to receive calls now, Felipe. Thank you.
Yeah,
Now I
definitely.
have to
Yeah.
be more of a
Say
hermit.
less.
I have to be a
Say
hermit
less.
now.
Oh man, Jesus. But
I'm scared if we should be publishing this now. They're gonna harvest
well,
my voice profile.
yeah, absolutely. That's
I'm
definitely
taking
a
the risk for you
possibility.
guys. I'm taking that risk for you guys.
So yeah, one other article that I want to share that I think it's something that was published. Well, it was published in 2017, but this is something that's been down the pipeline. Even the FCC has been warning consumers about this scam that I just talked about, which is pretty wild. As you can see, is becoming to fruition and more growing in popularity. So definitely be aware of getting those phone calls and just kind of be cognizant of what you do and don't do, basically. So, but definitely this podcast is to share these types of articles and be more informative to everyone. And hopefully there's a takeaway here for you all.
Excellent, excellent. Well said, Felipe.
Awesome. Any last topics here for anyone, Lewis?
No, I think we've covered a good amount for voice, basically deepfakes, and in the future we'll definitely dig deeper into other threats available out there. Specifically with AI, since it's moving so quick. I'm sure we'll have plenty to share with you guys in the next coming weeks.
Awesome. Thank you, Lewis. You've been listening to Clone Calls, the Voice Deception on FN Podcast, where your voice might not always be your own. Stay away, stay secure. Thank you for tuning in.